Good morning, good afternoon, and good day wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to a special edition of Sales TV Live. Today we culminate our first ever Sales TV Spotlight week. This one focused on women in sales with a panel discussion. In celebration of International Women's Day, we will celebrate the achievements and navigate the challenges faced by women in the sales industry. Joining me is a panel of top women in sales, and I'm going to give each of them a moment to introduce themselves. We'll go around the horn, and Jessie, I'll start with you, please.
Hello, I'm Jessie Molitor Larson. I'm the VP of Sales at Descara, based out of Minneapolis.
Thank you. Sonia.
Hello, everyone. Sonia Dumas, and I'm the co-founder of Campaign Coach AI, and I am looking forward to this.
As am I. Thank you. Jeanne.
Hi, I'm Jeanne Sachs. I'm the fractional CRO of Panthera, a SaaS company in the OTT streaming space.
Excellent. Thank you. Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly Lichtenberger, and I am the head of worldwide sales development at Avanan, a checkpoint company. We're email security.
Thank you very much. And Shawn.
Hello, I'm Shawn Sandy in Memphis, Tennessee, y'all. And I'm the Chief Revenue Officer and partner of Sauce Agency, where we take all the marketing and sales nonsense and boil it down to making moments that matter for our clients to scale and grow their businesses with their clients.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I want to make sure that we're keeping this conversation strong, positive, and proactive. This is not going to be the woe is me seminar. Let's kick things off with some strong, positive advice for our audience. I'll open it up to each of you. Can you share a pivotal moment in your sales career that led to a breakthrough? And what strategies did you employ to navigate it? Anyone want to kick us off?
Sure, I'll go.
Thank you.
It's a story I've told many times. My first real sales role was working at a TV station in the Memphis market. And what I didn't know was I had no sales experience. I had a great interview and they hired me. And what I didn't realize was the reason they were willing to give a shot to someone who had zero experience selling advertising on television was because it was the absolute worst station in the market. Like, this is how bad. Reruns, and this is an ABC affiliate, reruns of Andy Griffith at 5 o'clock, a show that had been off the air for 32 years. They only had 252 episodes and it was in black and white, consistently beat our 5 o'clock news ratings in every demographic. And I didn't realize that until I was in the conference room watching the training VHSs. So that tells you how long ago it was. And I looked at the Scarborough ratings because I went, oh crap, I'm not going to make any money at this if I didn't figure out how to sell differently, because agencies buying ratings, we didn't have any. They would say, is this a mistake? Is that supposed to be 5.0 or is it 0.5? I was no, it's 0.5. So I had to find businesses that didn't want to buy ratings. They wanted to be on TV. So it was the same end product that we were selling, but for different reasons. So I had to go fish in ponds for people to understand why they wanted to be on TV. Was it, they're the king of mattresses and they wanted their sons to be on TV. It was very different. I was very successful by finding out how to position what we had to people who valued that specific thing. So that was a game changer. And anywhere I've ever been, it's what pond do I fish in? What bait do I use? It could be the same product, but it's connecting with people who really wanted what you had to buy for the reasons that they wanted to buy it. So that was how I started.
Love it.
I'll
Anyone
go.
else, please.
Yeah. So I was in the hotel development space, and it was interesting because for the most part, my boss, he would just really hand deals to me that were pretty much closed. And one day he puts me in front of a client. He said, I really haven't closed them yet, so you go ahead and do it. And I had never been in sales. I was usually always the executor, the behind the scenes. And what I had to learn, and I was only given like 2 days notice that I was going to close this. At the time, I think it was like a $500,000 deal. And I was in my 20s, never close a $500,000 deal right in your 20s. And so he said, you know what? I will, let me take a step back. I was struggling with knowing what to talk about because I had the contract, I had the proposal. And so I did some practice. I was like, can we just go through this? And I was going through all the line items, and he just kind of looked at me and he was like, you're not selling our proposal. I said, we're not. What are we selling then? Like, why am I there? He said, what you're selling is the destination to what this client wants to get to. So he said, so just go there, ask him what he wants, focus on, and whatever he tells you, focus on that. And so went to this meeting and I started talking with the client, and my nervousness had me reading the proposal. And at some point I heard him in the back of my mind. I said, okay, calm down, because the nervousness was there too. And so I was able to calm down, and I just finally asked, what do you need? Like, what do you really want? And at the time, the client just wanted someone who would do exactly what they said they would do. Because then as we talked, I said, can you explain that a little bit more? And as we talked more, we found out that most of the vendors that he had hired to help open this hotel were failing left and right. No one was meeting their promises. No one was meeting their deadlines. And he's like, if you can just do exactly what you say you're going to do, we'll go with you guys. And I was like, oh yeah. And me knowing me, I was like, we're going to get to that destination. And I was able to focus then from that point on. I knew the relationship really wasn't about what was in the contract. It was getting him to his destination. And he didn't really care how we got there, as long as it got him to that. And I was one less vendor he had to stress about not fulfilling their goals and not fulfilling his goals. And so that power state, I would say that lesson was find out where people actually want to go. What's their destination? Because we really don't care how we get there. If there was an easy button to press, people would just press the button and get there, right? Like, but the fact is there's all these nuances, and it's the nuances that wear and grind on people. And when I recognize, oh, I just need to be one less problem in his life. That's what it really comes down to. How do I show up as one less problem, but an asset? And that changed every conversation I had after that. And so closing a client was, I found, quite easy, because it wasn't really about closing a client. It was about creating security and safety, saying, you know what, you come with me, we're going to get to our destination. We're going to have fun doing it.
Love it.
So fish in the right ponds and get them to the right destination. What else you got?
I think for me, I would say it probably goes way back. I grew up with a family that had business owners, and I kind of fell into sales. And my dad once told me, he was like, all you have to do is solve people's problems. And I think so often when people get into sales, you spend so much time trying to learn a product. What's the product do? How do I pitch it? What are those things? And when I focused on, okay, what's the problem we're solving? If we don't have a problem to solve, there's nothing to sell. You can be the greatest salesperson in the world, but if the customer doesn't have a problem or doesn't know they have a problem, there's nothing to do there. So asking enough questions to understand if we're helping somebody, and if that is your sole focus, you're going to be successful. So when I talk to reps or anybody, I'm like, you don't need to know the product. Don't worry about everything it does. What's the problem?
It's okay, they don't.
Ask questions. That's all you need to know.
Well, and I think
excellent.
like personal life and professional life, it comes down to pain.
Mm-hmm.
We're not changing anything unless the pain is great enough. So I may not have enough time to even just mow my lawn because I'm so busy. But if you live somewhere that has an HOA and they send you a letter that you have to get your lawn cut, that's when you may decide, I didn't have in the budget to have a lawn service, but I'm going to find one. So it's that, what do I need to do to get to the pain? And then how do I solve it for people? And so a lot of times when I'm teaching new reps, it's all about take off the table what we have and just start an open dialogue. With everything out there today, and, we all hear about AI, and there's so many ways to get to information so quickly. Any level that you're calling into, you can easily search to find out what are the top 5, 10 things that are of interest to them this year that you can then go in and start talking about. So keep it at that level and then open the door. And if my product happens to fit in there, that's great. Let's continue the conversation. But I'm not looking to sell anything at all when I'm first walking in.
Yeah, and I would add to that. I think, one of the things I always tell people is always be helping, right? So you're building a relationship for the long term, and yes, you may be able to solve their problem today, and if you have something that can provide that solution today and they're ready to buy, great. But sometimes they're not, and so those are potential customers of the future, whether you're at one company or maybe even another. So I always say to people, always look at it as always be helping. How are you either helping them solve a problem or providing them with information that's of value? Really always coming to the table with something of value for them makes you a resource, and then people want to buy from you when they have the opportunity or the budget or their need that they need to fulfill.
Fantastic. So I want to pick up on the theme of helping, but go in a little different direction. In what ways has mentorship impacted your career in sales, and how do you recommend women seek out and foster these relationships?
Well, I think mentorship is massive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I, over the years, I've had several mentors, or people I consider mentors, and there are people. Sometimes they're people that have way more experience than I do, and sometimes they've even been people that don't, but they give me a different perspective. They help me look at things differently, and so finding the people in your life that can help be a sounding board for you and give you honest and critical feedback is so important to just getting better at what you do. And so I think that's really important. And I've been fortunate. I think, I've had several different mentors over the years, and I have one or two in particular that I've had almost my entire career that I just have enormous amount of trust and faith in, that I always know will give me really great and clear feedback. And then sometimes you find new ones. Like, I'm part of a women's leadership group, and there's a woman that runs that group who's phenomenal. She's this CEO, and whenever I sort of bump up against something that I'm like not 100% sure if I'm making the right decision, I'll actually run it by her and say, hey, this is the problem I'm having. This is what I'm thinking about doing. What do you think? And so it's always nice to have that. And sometimes it's peers, and sometimes it's somebody who has more experience, or even in a different sort of area of the business that might be helpful.
Yeah.
Is there a process for intentionally going about finding a mentor?
I haven't really looked at it that way. It kind of happened sort of naturally. It's just about building relationships with people. I mean, I know there are ways to formally find a mentor, but I've never really done that. I've always sort of developed relationships with people along the way that I've just, worked with, or not even worked in the same company with, but got to know in the industry, and then developed a long-term relationship that, turned into sort of like a mentorship relationship.
And I think one of the things we can do is expand the vocabulary, right? So instead of just calling it mentor, it's advisor, it's coach, it's counselor, therapist.
Yes.
It's a lot of different things. And, we used to say mentor. I think of like 1980s mentor. You formally sit down with someone and they're going to give you their time. People are busy. So I never go up to someone and say, hey, you want to be my mentor? It's like, you'll be a handful. Think about that.
It's also a lot to ask of one person. And, I've never been in a specific program with that. But what I did figure out, especially after, carrying a bag, is the old-fashioned term for a salesperson, carrying a bag. Like, some of us remember that. I did mention the VHS tapes. But what I figure is there are some specific people you need in your tribe. And one of them is a therapist, for sure. We actually even offer BetterHelp mental coaching to our employees because it's been such a game changer, therapist. But also that someone who calls you on your BS for playing small, someone who knows you and will call you out on your BS. You also need someone in your tribe who does things that scare you, someone who stretches themselves, jumps off of, whether it's jumping off of buildings, crashing weddings, or going for promotions or whatever, someone who scares you, someone with deep industry knowledge and expertise. and then someone who will just listen and give you good advice. So you need like a tribe instead of just one person. It is a lot of to ask of just one person. You might find one of those things in a person, but especially like find somebody who does things that scare you and see how your life changes.
Yeah.
I'd also say with it, it's important. I wish I had started out in my career earlier.
Yeah.
Building that tribe. I think sometimes when we're starting out, we get nervous to ask for help or to seek that out, because then all of a sudden there's that fear of, well, if I'm asking, that means I'm not good at what I do, or, you know, just all those fears happen. So I think look for that sooner than later. And if you're nervous about where to find them, there's great organizations now, even looking at LinkedIn. There's Girls Club. They do a ton with mentorship programs. There's groups like Fire. There's so many that you can just start following online, and then those relationships can start to happen organically behind the scenes, and you can see what others are doing.
Kelly, you took the words right from my mouth, because I was going to say the same thing. The biggest challenge to especially younger people in their career is ask early. And it can be as simple as, hey, do you want to have a virtual coffee? Or do you want to go grab coffee? It doesn't need to be, to some of the comments earlier, something very formal, but that's how you start building those relationships. I would say all of my mentors have started from maybe one-off conversations or coffee or something that has grown into more of a full relationship. And starting that, I wish I would have, like you said, I wish I would have started at 23. But the more you do it, the bigger your tribe gets.
Yeah. And being vocal about what do you want for your life? Because it's hard, you know, people want to help, but they need to know where to direct you. And you have to let them know, hey, look, I'm really interested in X. Be vocal about what your vision is, right, for your own life, or where you would like to go in your career. And it's through those conversations that you will get routed accordingly to the right people. But if you're quiet, no one really knows. They're just going to assume, okay, you're happy with where you're at, and maybe you're not. So being vocal about the destination that you want for your own life is important to be able to attract that tribe to you as well.
Oh my gosh, I agree with that. It took me forever to learn that. I got passed over for a promotion once early in my career, and I was upset. And I went to my manager and I said, oh my gosh, you know, I can't believe you guys didn't even consider me. And she said, you didn't raise your hand. And I was like, oh my God. I was like,
yeah,
that's a hard lesson. I was like, I mean, I needed to like make sure you knew I really wanted this. Like, you didn't really know that I wanted it. And I said, oh my gosh, that's a good lesson for me. Like, speak up.
You know what? But that actually dovetails to a little bit of the socialization of women, where if we don't speak up. So if we do all of these really like subtle things, maybe you pick up on the subtle hints of, can you take it down? Maybe you pick up on the subtle hints that I really want this. And it's like, no, my dad, one of the things he taught me is, you don't ask, you don't get. And I learned that early. So I started asking for everything. And then it's like, okay, you asked for too much now.
Better than not asking at all, right?
Yeah, better than not asking at all.
There are studies that show that women in organizations, women are usually only known or talking to their direct level supervisors. They're not promoted throughout the organization. So if you are a woman in any position, much less sales, you need to make sure that you are promoting yourself outside of your direct level supervisor, and that your supervisor is promoting you, that you are taking the credit for the things you do, the things you accomplish. And that is known beyond the one person or the one level above you, so that it gets around that, hey, this is the person who takes the lead, this person's sharp, etc. Because, you know, you can't count on just that one person to promote you. You have to go promote yourself.
One of the things I just did with a group that I was talking to is, we went around the table and asked every woman what they're an expert at. I will tell you how hard that is for a lot of women.
I'll bet.
To say that sentence, my name is blank and I'm an expert at blank. And once you get comfortable, because that you feel ick and, oh my gosh, what if, like, how does that come across? But it's not about, you're not going out and just, now saying to everybody in the office, I'm an expert at, but it's getting to own what you feel you're most confident at, and then embracing that, and then finding ways to let people know that that is your expertise. So when it comes time, they do come to you. Again, it's about, being quiet, but really owning who you are and what you're skilled at. And we have to be more vocal about that. I think it gets lost. And especially in the workplace, you want people to know. I want to know if I'm seeking out something, who are the experts in my office that know this? It's not an ick thing. I want to know, who do I go to if I need to learn something?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kelly, I want to pick up on that. Thank you for that. This is a great transition. So, as we know, the role of sales is evolving. The skills and traits of great salespeople are evolving. What are the top skills you believe are essential for success in sales today? And are women better suited to them?
I will say this, in a world of AI, tap into your EI. Your emotional intelligence will take you farther than any AI. So that is the big thing I'm coaching people on. That's all. You have that. It's innate to you. Find out what those skills are. Keep it human, and you will always succeed. When you start really thinking it's all about your tools, like we were saying before, you lose the human aspect. And today, more than ever, people want the human aspect. If you think about even when you're trying to reach somebody and you're calling into an 800 line and it's, stop computer, I just want the person.
Yeah.
People really want that. And you need to take that through your professional career as well and know that.
I love this question. Oh, sorry, Sonia.
Oh, go for it.
Go.
I love this question because there are studies that say women are outperforming men in achieving quota, and then women who are managed by female sales directors or female managers in sales, or their teams are outperforming. And it's a complex question. It goes to what Sonia's talking about with socialization too. If you think about what the biggest things that are compelling success in sales now, it's people who can foster collaboration, people who are excellent communicators, people who are empathetic. And those traits are seen as historically feminine qualities. There's a great book called The Athena Doctrine, and these economists, they wrote about economies and governments run by women that were growing and being successful because people are leaning into collaborations. And so it's not necessarily that women are innate at these things. It's because that's fostered in women to be collaborative, to be great listeners, to be empathetic. That is fostered more in women than it is in boys and men. So these things that the world needs now, people are turning to leaders that are able to collaborate and pull the empathetic understanding from people. They're being successful in sales, and you're seeing that in the sales results. So I don't know that it's necessarily rooted exactly in gender so much as we socialize women and boys differently to grow up to do these things. You hear men and bros talking about crushing quotas and doing those things. Well, people are tired of wanting to be crushed. I'm not a quota. I don't want to be crushed. I don't want to be so I think it's a very interesting question, but the world is waking up to those specific skills and having those. The emotional intelligence Kelly talked about, being successful in sales, comes because women are more nurtured earlier on to be empathetic, good listeners, communicate, foster collaboration, etc.
Makes a lot of sense.
I was going to say, I don't know if I truly believe that sales has changed that much. I think good salespeople do certain things, like we said, emotional intelligence. They listen. They ask really good questions. I don't think that's changed. I think the way buyers buy is changing and evolving, and that is becoming more impactful. Someone mentioned I'm in technology, right? The SaaS bro culture.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, people don't buy from that. I don't need to be pitch slapped every time I sign into LinkedIn. I want someone who just has a genuine conversation with me. And to Shawn's point, that tends to be more characteristics of females.
Yeah, I completely agree. EI definitely will always be far far ahead of AI or any tech tool. Like, at the end of the day, I look at tools as a form of accelerating productivity, efficiency, so that way you can focus on what's uniquely human. And at the end of the day, it's about relationships. It's about being able to have influence. And, when Shawn was talking about, the bro culture of crushing it and, like we're going to like drive for certain things, I get to the core of what everybody, right? I get to the core of what everybody wants.
Be a totally different conversation now.
Right. And,
you had it on backwards.
There you go. But I mean, look at the core of what people want. Like, it's about winning, right? Whatever winning means for a certain person, and it's about momentum and movement. So, I look at it saying, when you think about like, where technology is going, technology is always changing and making things either better or easier, harder or more efficient. And so being able to say, yes, let's utilize technology to do certain things that we can do in minutes instead of taking days, months, and weeks that we technically shouldn't have been doing, but we didn't have the solution for it. But then at some point, especially when you are dealing with sophisticated, affluent, high level, serious people, they want the relationship because they want to know that when something goes wrong, because they've been around the block enough times, they can pick up the phone and call someone, or that you can be proactive and you can have a conversation that's going to move whatever the situation forward is or fix things. And if you become, I think there was a TV show at one point called The Fixer. I think it was like in politics, like if you can become the fixer, someone who you pick up the phone and things move. And it's about this idea of momentum and movement and winning. And before there was a language for it, but now it's just really an emotion and a vibe and an energy. And that's what you come with. And being able to then say, okay, my tools are doing this, but here's what I can do. And Kelly, you mentioned something earlier about, when you ask women about, what's their expertise and they didn't know. Well, one of the ways you can, as a woman, to say what your expertise is, what results have you actually created? So it's not so much that it's not so much about being an expert, is the fact that you can, your particular skill set can create a certain result. And it's that result because companies, it's a nebulous entity, right? It's not really a person, it's a bunch of people. But at the end of the day, that company, that entity is always moving forward, and results help things move forward. So when you talk to your expertise, when I talk to my expertise, when Shawn talks to her expertise, we're actually talking about the results and how we move things forward. And that makes us strong because I got numbers to back up what I'm saying I can do. And if I can't do it, trust me, I know some people who can. And that part is what makes you powerful. And I could say, yes, I am an expert because I know how to get stuff done, right? Like, the whole get ish done part, like we know how to do that. And that's where you can then stand in that versus being like, well, I don't know if I'm an expert. I'm like, do you have any results? You've been working for 20 years. Surely you have some results.
Yeah. So I was going to say,
go ahead, Jeanne.
Yeah, Shawn. So the only thing I was going to add to that is, things, as you said, the sort of sales hasn't changed that much at the end of the day, except that today, like especially in technology sales, it depends on what industry you're in. A lot of decisions are made digitally. Like in the old days when I first started selling, I could actually go like sit in front of somebody.
Wasn't that fun? I feel like that was the funnest part.
Right. And yeah, it was the best part of it. I loved it. And it's a little harder today. Like a lot of, it took me, for my last company, I think we didn't get to meet the team that bought our technology until after the deal closed. So we spent like a year talking and building a relationship digitally. And then we got to meet, which is insane when I think about that. To me, it seems a little ass backwards. But when I look for what skills in people, the idea of, EQ and good listening is huge. I think the other thing is adaptability. Like there is constant change. So you have to get people who are just willing to roll with the punches a little bit and and the other thing I was going to say is, they're really good at taking constructive feedback. Like they want to get better. They want to be good at what they do. They're coachable. I'm like trying to search for that word. They're really coachable. So those are two other skills I think are really important in this particular environment, just because of the constant change and how things are evolving so rapidly.
Shawn, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to make one other point about, the asking women what they're experts in. Even this, going back to the socialization, even our women's notion of what is bragging and being humble is generally different in the workplace. And so that is a monumental thing to address, Kelly, if you're as a mentor, as a sales leader, as a division leader, to address what you think you are good at, what you think is bragging, what is humble. That notion is antiquated, and women in particular in the workplace have got to speak up to understand it's not bragging. You're not going to be, you might be seen as being bragging, but you have to step up and do it. It is a really hard thing. It's a really hard thing to do because we're taught very differently. But that's
again, I think it's like owning the different skill sets and then having the results behind it. Because they say women won't even apply for a job unless they have 87% of the skills that are listed in the descriptor. When men, it's like 60%, they say. They'll learn it. Well, we can learn it. So why aren't we raising our hand? So I think that's, again, just being able to know what you've been able to bring to the table and what you're willing to do to learn what needs to be done. Not everybody comes with 100% of what it's needed. There's always something you're going to have to learn. So I think it's really important just to, again, to stop putting ourselves in that bubble that what we're saying we're good at is bragging. It has nothing to do with bragging. It has everything to do with bringing yourself forward and making yourself heard as far as what you can bring to the table. Again, they say, don't show up at tables where you have to bring your own chair. We have to start being, there for a reason.
Someone once gave me the advice, and I would say it was probably one of the best advice, is to create a folder in your inbox for every time someone sends you an email of something you did great. Because so often you talk to people and they're working on a resume or they're interviewing and they're like, well, I don't know. But it's that collection of, okay, here are the things people said about me. Here are quotes. Here are things that even if you're having a bad day, you can go back to. But it helps people have the confidence, especially women, to say, okay, I can feel it. It's okay because someone else validated it, because it's an email here and so said this, versus feeling like, well, I can say this, but what would someone else say, or what are they going to think?
I was really hoping you'd bring me there, and collectively you did. So with the inbox collection, with your bragging and humbling, and what results have you created? Are you an expert? How important is personal branding in sales? What are some effective strategies for building a strong personal brand? And is it important for women to incorporate their gender as part of their personal brand?
Who wants to go?
Good question.
That's layered and loaded.
And I don't think you have, Rob, I don't think you have a choice. Like, your personal brand is you. You are a woman. Like, so naturally your personal brand is going to incorporate being a woman, because that's who you are, right? I mean, your personal brand is you. So I think personal branding is massively important. And I've spent a lot of time working on this over the years. And, today, we have some incredible tools to help us do that. I mean, LinkedIn is obviously one of them. So, it's amazing to me. Like, I've worked with salespeople who are really senior, like really experienced, capable people that have the worst LinkedIn pages I've ever seen. Like, they just don't take care of their personal brand. And I think as a seller, as well as a sales leader, building that personal brand, being a thought leader, writing articles, resharing articles that you think are interesting or important within your industry, being active in communities online is so critical to building your personal brand, and also networking. I mean, it's just, to me, building that personal brand enables you, and it's sort of it greases the skids of building your network. And so, I think that's massively important for any gender. It doesn't matter. And I think as a woman, your personal brand is you. So of course it's important for women.
I just had this conversation with my team maybe 2 weeks ago about branding. Like every interaction you have, you're building brands, both your company brand and your personal brand. And I think if I look back to maybe my parents' age or grandparents, or people worked somewhere for 40 years, like that's not necessarily true anymore. And building your brand it's going to help the role you're in today. It's going to help the role down the future, but you have only you to rely on. So really putting a focus on what are you doing in every interaction to make that memorable. For a lot of people that are in SaaS, like I think the average is like 2 years now, which is crazy.
It is.
But you might sell to someone today that 3 years down the road, you're at a different company. If you build that brand, you've got that connection to rely back on. And so I think it's so important. And 100%, Jeannie, to your point, like we're females. Like I can't build my brand without being me authentically. So that's the only way to show up.
Yeah, I love that.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Sonia.
I think I'm always about like, let's look at a word and switch it. So instead of calling it personal brand, it's your reputation. That is throughout all of history. So back in the day, it was, our grandparents and parents, it was their reputation was what they was known in their company and maybe the circle of friends. Now your reputation is global, right? Between LinkedIn to Facebook to Instagram to YouTube, you now have control of your reputation on a level that you didn't really, I wouldn't say control. You have the ability to broadcast your reputation at a level that did not exist before. So look at it as this is your resume. This is like resume times 10, right? It's you being able to go before future opportunities, all because they look at your social profile and they see what you do. And all of a sudden then opportunities come to you because of what your reputation that you were showing online. So even if you're maybe a little bit shy, like some of us we're shy when we're in front of people, but we can turn on the camera, light up, let our personality, let our expertise come through, and then we turn off the camera and we're back to, So you can play with that, especially because I consider myself an ambivert, right? I know how to turn it off. I usually like to turn it on, turn it off. But being able to know that I have to have a professional and a social and a global reputation that's going to then open those doors. So think of it, instead of saying just personal branding, I have to have a logo on my colors. It's your reputation. How do you want people when they find you to be amazed by you, how to see your expertise? Because you also don't know who at your company higher up will see you. And next thing you know, you skyrocket through 3 or 4 positions, or someone else at another company offers you a position. You just don't know. But if your reputation isn't there at a digital level, it's very hard. It's going to be very hard to just like knock on doors and open into someone's office to speak to them.
Love that.
If I were the tattooing sort, I have a lot of mantras that I would have tattooed all over my body, right? One of them would be everything you do is a preview of what it's like to work with you. So think of your digital reputation, your interactions with people, website, et cetera, especially me having a business. Everything I do is a preview of what it's like to work with me. And so it's your personal brand, but also it's a pre-qualifier. If you don't like this, probably not gonna like working with me. I drop F-bombs or do whatever, we're not gonna be a good fit, and that's okay. So your branding, what you say, what you contribute to thought leadership on LinkedIn or on your website, to your company meetings, it's a preview of what it's like to work with you. And as salespeople, it's really hard to get over. You're not gonna be for everyone, and you don't wanna sell to everyone. Everyone is not your customer. So go ahead, lean into what makes you great and what you bring to the party when you show up. It's a preview of what it's like to work with you. And if you want to get that tattoo, I'll get some licensing.
I think it comes down to too, it's where we started the conversation about gaining your mentors and things like that. This is all your for your next tattoo, your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah,
and that's what you're putting onto the world, right?
That's a nice one.
So I think starting off, and that attracts people, they'll start coming to you through that. And then again, you'll find people that you'll want to let in and learn from that. So I think it's really important. But of course, you have to tell the youth today, it can hurt you. So be careful. All of those social sites are out there for the world to see.
Yeah.
And I would say, one of the most important things that I try to teach people who are starting to do this is that you really have to be authentic. Like, you can't pretend to be you have to really know, like, who am I and what do I want people to think about me when they look at this or read this. And, a lot of the times now when I go on LinkedIn, I see articles or things that people post and it's AI generated, and I can tell.
Right.
And I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, great, you're posting something, but like, there's nothing about you in there at all. Like, I have no idea what your point of view is or how you look at this. And I think that's sort of junk content. Like, I think if you really want to build a reputation and build relationships, you have to be authentically you and have a real point of view. And you're right, Shawn, like, not everyone's going to like it. Like, there are people that are going to be like, I think her point of view sucks. Right. But that's okay. Like, you have to be you. Not everybody's going to like it. It's okay.
It's actually very triggering for people if you don't have a cohesive and coherent continuity of experience. When people read something online, they go to your LinkedIn profile page, they meet you in person. If they have that, this discongruence or incongruent experience, it immediately fight or flight, your sympathetic nervous system throws up trust signals. I don't know. This doesn't sound like the thing that I read. Like, we have to have a continuity of experience. So again, why be anything other than, yourself and bring your authentic brand to the party?
Yeah.
So part of what I heard was building your brand, building your network. Can you share your top networking tips for women sales professionals looking to expand their connections within the industry?
I go back.
I have one. Can I?
Yeah.
Mind if I share?
Sure.
Show up at things like this.
Yeah.
That's
Put yourself out there. And someone told me a long time ago that when I was building my sales consulting service, like, there's a lot of imposter syndrome that goes there. Like, I felt sick every time I put a price on a contract or proposal. If you feel like you're going to throw up or die, you're growing. That's important. But, if you don't have to be a 10 to be of value to someone. You can show up with your 4 level of knowledge and expertise and help someone who's at level 2. You can show up at a 6 and help someone who's at a 4. So show up there and be helpful to other people and be open. And then you can turn around and ask for what you need too. You've got to start asking questions and be curious and building connections, because there's a whole world of people out there who will help you. Being part of Women Sales Pros, Lori Richardson, God love her, she promotes us to, like, she probably told, hey, Rob, here's the people you need to have on your show. Like, find people who will promote you and promote them, and you've got to give it back. You've got to keep giving it back to the world.
Shout out to Lori.
There you go. Yeah, Lori's incredible.
Amazing.
I would throw out once again, changing some of the language. Like, when you think networking, it also goes back to, here's your business card, here's my business card, and hopefully we do something. I look at it as going back to building your tribe. Look for alliances, right? Look for partners, like, change the language, because then that's also going to change how you're showing up in a space, right? So your alliances and partners can start with your personal brand, your social reputation. Start there, start commenting, start finding people that you really love their articles. Like, that is the easiest space without even have to go anywhere live. And then from there, do show up live. Because there's nothing more amazing about when you meet someone for the first time and their energy, as Kelly said, right? Your vibe is your tribe. And that's going to then open up doors that you can't even imagine. But definitely change the language. Instead of just saying networking, like, that's too much of a, what do I get out of it, right? And there's almost a bit of a, I would say we're a little bit hostile and guarded, because it's like, okay, we're just here for the normal exchange. No, I'm looking for alliances. I'm looking for partners. I'm looking for interesting opportunities. As who knows where the conversation is going to go. So also have a level of passion and curiosity. Like, I look at it as, this is your life. Like, why are you doing any of this, right? It has to be more than just paying the bills and getting a check. Like you were building something. And so that also goes back to why you need a mentor, a coach, a therapist, because you need a vision for where your life is going, because then you can backtrack and say, okay, if I want to get here, what are all the things I need to do versus all these tactics that are all over the place? You have to have a strategy and a vision for yourself first, and then you're going to plow forward because you know what you want. So
I
that's
love
just
and give thumbs up. And I go back to, oh, that's beautiful. Always be helping, right? I mean, it goes back to the always be helping thing. Like I don't go, and I'll take this back for 1 second. So the pandemic really, was brutal because I literally never left my house for like 2 solid years, which was, me and everyone else. But like, when I had to go back and start going to events in person, it was like trying to figure out what I what I was supposed to do. I mean, almost forgot, like, oh, this is real people. I can have like real conversations and actually build real relationships with people in person. This is exciting. And, and now every time I do it, and I've been doing it a lot, I really do think, how can I help this? I don't think about me at all. Like it's all about them. Like, how can I help you? What are you working on? What are you trying to accomplish? Like that's how you build a real relationship. Then people want to help you, but like you really need to help them first. Like your attitude has to be, how do I help you? What can I do to be helpful to you? And then, it's a great way to start to build those alliances like you talked about, Sonia.
Yeah.
So I heard a reference to this earlier today, and I'm still going to ask it anyway, knowing that it's different for everyone. How do you manage work-life balance in the demanding field of sales? And why is that important?
I will jump in here. I don't think there's such a thing as work-life balance. I prefer the term work-life integration. Maybe you guys heard my 3-year-old does not have daycare today, so she was running in and slamming the door. I'm putting myself on mute. But I think it's how do they work together, and it's never going to be perfect. But I think for me, having a supportive other person that can help, and on the company side, making sure you're aligning yourself with organizations that also are supportive of that. Because you can have the greatest spouse in the world, but if you're not working for a company that values that, it's going to be really hard to integrate that. So you really need to prioritize those things, and be thoughtful of what are your boundaries, and be verbal about what are your boundaries. So I have to pick my daughter up at X time, so I will not take meetings during this time. If you set that boundary up front, people are typically good about adhering to that, but you have to be verbal about that. A lot of females, I think too often were like, yeah, I can do that. Oh, I can do that. And that's where you burn out.
People pleasing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's about
no.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say women are really bad at saying no. We always want to say yes. So I think learning how to say no a little bit is really helpful.
As little girls, you're taught a lot of things that go to being perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So now I try to work with young women just getting into their career. It has nothing to do with perfection and everything to do with excellence. And so what is that for yourself? So if you're starting to do the people pleasing and saying yes when you know you should have said no, you're not going to feel fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to end up walking away feeling really badly. So that's why it's so important to set those boundaries with yourself first. And then you can provide them out and take away the guilt feelings and all of the things that come with that. And just being really true to yourself. That's where the balance comes in. I know as people, you show up a lot better when you feel better yourself. Yeah. So it's really important to put yourself first. And I know, again, that goes to oh my God, how can I do that? That sounds so terrible. But once you realize what that is and why you're doing that, and it's not anything to do with an ego or anything like that. It's so you show up as the best version of yourself. And that's where also, again, going back to the brand that we're talking about, that's how you build your best brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Boundaries. What? Like we're not we're not taught a lot of boundaries and self-preservation, socialization as young women. There's this, it's called the good girl complex, and it's, we need to get perfect grades and be perfectly behaved and look perfect and wear the perfect dresses and things. And if you don't think that crosses over into work, you are kidding yourself. So it breeds this hypervigilance and hyper performance and perfectionism that we don't know what to do with until everything falls apart as women. And so I will be the first to stand up and tell you, your kids aren't going to die if they eat frozen food, like fish fingers or chicken parts and frozen potato, whatever bombs. Like, that's fine. That's fine. It's okay. Like, perfectionism is a fallacy. Work-life balance, just, I love that you said that. You're like, I call it integration. Like, we show up as whole ass people, and we have to give each other space for that, and certainly not make other women feel like we're judging them for what they have for dinner or when they pick up their kids or whatever. I mean, none of that matters. It just matters that you are a whole person, and you bring that whole person to your work, and you bring the whole person to your community and to your children, your family, etc. And give people space to do that, and then say no to crap. That's a good one too. Just say no. I don't want to do that. Thank you. It takes practice to do that too. My friends laugh because they're like, you have really good boundaries, because I'll say, that does not sound like fun to me. I do not want to do that. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. No.
And to springboard off that, Shawn, I would also add, it also goes back to knowing you, right? And your personality, what your talents are, what your skills are, because some of you are in industries you really shouldn't be in, right? Like, some industries are always on. Like, hospitality is always on. So if you want to be a general manager at a hotel and be absolutely badass, just know you're going to be always on. Mm-hmm. And so being able to recognize, and like, I have friends who love it. They love being always on.
Yeah.
Not me. So I knew there was only a certain level that I could go up that ladder before I was like, no, because I need to have my weekends. Yeah. And unfortunately, if you're in hospitality, the weekends, that's when the wedding happens. That's when the major events happen. And you can't be vacationing during those times. Exactly. So recognize what industries will you thrive in. And certain ones are not going to be for you and your personality. So it also, you chose your job, right? And so you have to be able to figure out over time, and sometimes it takes time, you go through one thing or another, and just know you have to be adaptive. Be adaptive to figuring out, what is my space? What is my lane? Have fun with that adventure, but just know you're never stuck. And also just pay attention to what's real about that industry. And if you want to change it, then you may have to go start your own company and do it a little bit differently. But just recognize that's a part of some of the boundaries. It's self-boundaries on what can I work in and what can I. And sometimes it's the environment, and you can't change the environment, but you can change which environments you decide to put yourself in.
Really good.
Wow. That's great,
Excellent.
Sonia.
So many things I still want to explore with this panel, but we're coming to the end of our time. So let's go around one more time and just let everyone know the best way to get in touch with you. Again, Jessie, if you'd kick us off, please.
Absolutely. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Jessica Molitor Larson. I know I have a very long last name, but I refuse to drop my maiden name. Or you can reach out to me at jessie.molitor@descara.com.
Thank you. Sonia.
Oh, so I am also on LinkedIn. Just come find me, Sonia Dumas. I'm connected to Shawn. If you don't know Shawn, I'm connected to Rob. So find them, you'll find me.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm also on LinkedIn, Jeanne Sachs, and you can also reach me at email at Jeanne, Jeanne, at firsttracksadvisors.com.
Excellent. Thank you. Kelly.
So same thing, LinkedIn, and you can find me as well on Sales TV and other areas that I've spoken at, as well as my latest endeavor, which is Kelly at prospectlikeagirl.com.
Awesome. I like it.
I can't wait to check that out, Kelly. Yeah.
And Shawn.
Like everyone else, I'm on LinkedIn, but I want to say, look at how amazing it is that each one of these women gave you their email address. I'm going to give you mine too. And I welcome, like all of us, we welcome people looking for mentors and things like that. If you use it, however, to prospect, know that you may end up in a blog, or good, bad, or otherwise. My email is sks@sauceagency.com. I'd also love for you to go to makemomentsthatmatter.com and check out our podcast. It's all about exactly what we're talking about today with sales, business, scalability, etc.
This has been a fantastic session. This has been a fantastic end to the week, the Sales TV Spotlight, Women in Sales. Just want to share with the audience, we do have a newsletter. You can find it at SalesTV.live/newsletter. And what we'll do is provide a recap of each episode this week. We'll provide the contact information for each of our panelists, each of our guest hosts, each of their guests. And we'll even provide some behind the scenes or beyond the conversation commentary from guests that have said, you know, I have more to say on that. So check that out at SalesTV.live/newsletter. On behalf of myself and everyone else at Sales TV, ladies, I want to thank you very much for sharing your time with us, sharing your insights with us. This has been a fantastic session. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. Did
Thank
we
you.
have the time to ask you what you've taken away from this week? Do we have time to do that? Because thank you
We
for
do.
hosting all of us.
So what
What did
I've
you take
taken
away?
away from this week, if you want to be considered an ally, don't wait to be invited. Sometimes you have to step up and take a proactive approach in that too. And I hope that we here at Sales TV have done that effectively.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Thank you.
you, Rob. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Bye all.